individuals who either A, are not getting enough of those things, or B, they have some problems with metabolizing or using those things properly in their bodies. So looking at those micronutrients can give us some answers as to why a person's blood sugar may not be being controlled very well.
So vitamin B is a good example. It's completely necessary to burn sugar into energy with oxygen to have B vitamins in your cells. Now, it was recognized back, I believe it was back in the 40s. I wasn't around at that time. Somebody here might have been, but I wasn't. But there was a time, I think it was in the 40s or 50s, when large amounts of refined carbohydrates came into the food supply, and the government stopped that and said, okay, to the food processors, this is causing problems. They were actually having people in the late 40s getting very disease, pellagra. These are diseases of deficiency because these refined carbohydrates have no vitamins in them. When you take a whole grain and process it and refine it, all the B vitamins and the minerals that were in the whole grain are all gone. So what happens is they had these diseases happening, and I believe it was the late 40s, the government stepped in and said, hold it, the refining companies, if you're going to have refined carbohydrates, you must add B vitamins. So if you look at bread today, if you look at refined bread, look on the label. It'll say right on there, added B vitamins.
Yep.
It's required by law to refine that because they knew that back then. Now, of course, the B vitamins they put in there are commercial and they're synthetic. They're made from pure chemicals. They're not the B vitamins that were in the grains originally. But that was recognized back then that this was a big problem and that B vitamins are important. So these are just some suggestions on how to self-manage your own diet, on how to prevent these problems. Avoid white foods, those empty calories that are refined carbohydrates that have all carbohydrates and no vitamins and minerals left in them, or virtually none.
So we're talking about white sugar, white flour, white rice,
white noodles, all of those things.
all of those types of things. Those are all
White potatoes.
Yeah.
And cakes, pies, and cookies fall in that category too. They have color to them, but only because other things have been added. They're still white foods.
Right.
And we say moderate amounts of lean protein, animal products that are ideally healthy, clean, and not fed antibiotics, hormones, and healthy feed like range-fed, ideally grass-fed meat. And eat more unrefined plant foods, vegetables and fruits, especially green plants that have the B vitamins and the folates and the minerals that the body needs to metabolize sugar. Beans, nuts, and seeds. Beans have the ability, if you ate carbohydrates and then ate beans with them, beans have a special type of fiber in them that when you combine them, it slows the breakdown of the carbohydrates. Same thing with nuts and seeds. And then the other thing that I recommend in there, studies have been done on cooked food versus raw food. And there's a large study done out at a university in the East Coast, and what they found was there were proponents that said, oh, everybody should eat raw food. And there's another group that said, well, cooked food is better. So they did a pretty good study on it, and what they found is there's benefits to cooked food and there's benefits to raw food. The recommendation is half and half is the ideal. We need some raw, some cooked. And we need a small amount of fruit per day is ideal, no artificial sweeteners, and exercise balanced with rest, because the muscles are the main consumer of sugar when you're active, of glucose. When you're not active, we're sitting here, I'm standing here right now, the brain is burning 80% of the glucose in my bloodstream. So when the glucose levels rise and your brain can't take anymore, where's it going to go? Fat. So we need an engine made out of muscles so that our muscles can burn sugar for fuel and burn it up at a rate that we're taking it in so that we can have good energy and healthy and not store it as fat. There's a few things about exercise, just, there's studies repeated so many times that it doesn't make sense anymore, but they've all said the same thing. We know physiologically that exercise is good for you. Our bodies are made to be active, and what we do in functional neurology, the old story is that if you don't use it, you lose it, and people aren't using their bodies, and so they're losing function, brain function and muscle function. If you don't use it, you lose it. So by activity, you gain energy, well-being, improve health, and if you don't, it's the other way around, very straightforward.
And if there's things about exercise that are difficult for you, that's one of the things we can talk about, is what would be a way that you can do it? You don't have to be able to get out there and run 3 miles. Nobody does. There's all different kinds of ways. And here's one list that's at least a start. There's lots of different options that'll be around. Swimming pools. At least here within the Eau Claire, Chippewa Falls region, there's YMCA's, there's fitness centers, there's high schools, and even the middle schools.
There's even some hotels, I know that some patients that will allow you use of their pools during times when, when they don't have a lot of guests, and allow you to go in there and use those.
Right.
And some of my patients have been very successful in getting active just doing that. So,
So there's all different kinds of ways that you can do it.
And it's just human nature. We are, tribal type animals, and exercise by yourself can be boring. So ideally, get somebody else to exercise with. Do it in a group. It's always better doing things in a group. These are just some examples of what effects that doing exercise and a good diet has for people with type 1 diabetes. They can reduce kidney disease, nerve damage, and eye disease by large amounts. Type 2 diabetics, heart attacks reduced, eye damage reduced, kidney disease reduced. So those, by keeping the A1C in the target range, and exercise is a part of that, and also dietary. And these are some of the things that we use here in the office as nutrients to help your body metabolize sugar and keep that blood sugar regulation working properly.
Right.
These are nutrients that we can target to you by doing some tests, and then we can get you what you need, because the stories all over in the news, well, people take all these vitamins and most of them just make expensive urine. And there's some truth to that, because we see people who come in with a bag full of vitamins and minerals, and a lot of that isn't being used by the body, they're just peeing it away.
Yeah.
But what we can do by doing a few of those tests, and we have an offer at the end for one of them, do some tests so you know where you are. We can tell you exactly what you need. If you need B12, if you need zinc, or if you need what you need to get your specific metabolic system working more efficiently.
just like any other process, I mean, what we believe is that we believe in using tried and true principles, and the real principle here is diagnosis. The truth is you don't give somebody who's diabetic something for hypoglycemia, and vice versa. Testing is something that allows for a diagnosis and the administration of the proper things for the person who's standing in front of you. So, and each of these has a different purpose. The glycin is more directed towards somebody who's helping to improve insulin receptor sensitivity. Pro-glyco-SP is something that is more put together for somebody who is more hypoglycemic and dealing with reactive hypoglycemia, to be coupled with some of the dietary things. So,
We just brought these up as examples because there's an old adage, the most expensive vitamin out there is the one that people buy and they don't need, because they don't know what they need.
that's right.
And so with a little bit of guidance, you can be a lot more efficient that way.
Right. So,
These are some of the treatments that we use for, for neuropathy. There's a lot of people with neuropathy, and we see them literally every day.
right. And
Because we test for that.
Diabetes, there are many people who have neuropathy issues, and we've had a good deal of success with an electrical stimulation treatment called the Rebuilder, which is just something that mimics the normal waveform of the sensory nerve signal to the brain to help the brain and the sensory nerves reconnect. I just kind of likened it to patients that it's like when your car battery dies in the winter. You just haven't got enough juice to fire it up, so you need to hook your car up to another battery that has a full battery, and you give it a jump start. And that's what the Rebuilder essentially is it jump starts those nerves and starts waking up those sensory nerves for people to be able to restore normal sensation. And
It
with
does it
normal
more
sen-
mildly though.
Yes, but it isn't like you're, but the point of the matter is that it has been effective, and it's been a wonderful treatment that has helped people.
How long has that been around?
The Rebuilder? Well, I can tell you it's been around in our office for for a couple of years is what we've had it, but as far as the history of it, or how long the device has been in
About 5.
existence, I think it's been about the last 5 years, yeah. That's right.
And one of the things that I tell people is we test sensitivity on the toes in my normal exam that I do on everybody, and we see
Right.
a lot of people that have decreased sensation in their feet. And we just say, the reason we test this is important. What's the most common injury that happens to old people? They fall and break a hip.
Yep.
Why do people fall? Because they can't feel their toes.
Can't feel it.
So their brain doesn't know where the ground is. And that can be corrected by getting blood sugar working better, circulation, and rebuilding those nerves. So our goal is just to provide hope, which is, I talk about in this book, that there is this, he named this book The End of Diabetes. And what he says in here is that the American Diabetes Association, the medical community, the pharmaceutical community says, okay, you got diabetes, you have to take medication the rest of your life. And what Dr. Furman says from research, this is all evidence-based, you can prevent diabetes completely. And anybody with type 2 diabetes, it can be corrected and not there anymore, and not have diabetes anymore. It's correctable by doing the things that we talked about, and measuring things and doing the right things. When we do a measurement, do a plan of treatment, and then retest it and fine tune it to that person, because what we believe is that the type of therapy we do is called response model. If we do a test and you do a certain thing, then we need to test how does your body respond to that. That's why we do the neurological tests and the blood tests and the blood sugar tests, because people are different. So then we can refine what they're taking and doing that works for them, that we can be sure that they can clear up diabetes and end it.
Right.
So it's, again, preventable, correctable, except type 1. Somebody who has that, the beta cells in the pancreas are gone, not coming back,
No.
and so they're going to need to take insulin the rest of their life. But even doing these, you can cut insulin in half
Yeah.
and improve their
Well,
life,
it's-
because people with type 1 diabetes have the circulation issues, they have memory issues, you know, the things we talked about, and those can be improved.
Right.
So what we take it seriously as our job is to provide you with information. We provide care based on research and sound principles, like testing, like he said, so we know where you're starting, do something, know where you are, and know if you're doing the right thing. If it's over here, we need to adjust a little bit, make sure you get the right end result. And I'm going through this right now myself, so it's a timely subject. My mother has diabetes, has for 20 years, and it's been a long, slow slide, and she didn't take care of it, didn't listen to me. And right now, she just went into memory care because she's basically lost her memory and is heading into dementia from diabetes. And once it started going downhill, it didn't do any good to talk to her about it because she can't think straight anymore. We should eat better. Okay, I should eat better, and she'll go eat sugar. It doesn't compute anymore. So the best way to do it is to test it early. That's why we recommend these testing, so that you know where you are. The statistics are huge of how many people have it and don't know it. If you don't test for it, you don't know. So our job is to provide the tests, and so your job is to just make informed choices. We provide information, and we have time for some questions when we get done here. Take action and get feedback on your actions. That's some of the things that we do. And then we have an offer at the end. We do an exam, what we talked about, the neurological exam, and report of findings at $89. And for a bonus that we just do for this talk, we don't normally do this, we're going to throw in a hemoglobin A1C in for that price. That would cost a few $100s to do all those things, and if you want to do that, you can sign up tonight, and we'll do it for that fee.
Right.
So that's the end of what we had to present. What we'd like to do is open it up to questions, and we'd like to end at about 7:30, and
Or if you'd like to schedule, if you already know you'd like to do that, step up here and I'll take care of that for you.
Right, so, and we
The
recognize,
books.
oh, as far as the books here,
Or there or where.
we don't have any do we have copies of this
I
book?
don't have any
We don't
copies
have
of this
extra ones?
one either,
We don't have
but
extra ones,
they
but.
have, like, BAM has them, and Amazon
Amazon.
has them.
Yeah.
And Amazon, yeah, so,
So did you, just the name? Okay.
oh, sure.
yeah, you're welcome to come up and.
Yeah, just-
In fact, we can just put them up there and you can get those, but we also recognize that
I've
people.
had diabetes for 34 years.
Yes?
Can I reverse that? Because my numbers have been starting to get higher because I've been on, and I don't know if it's stress that's causing it, because I'm under a lot of stress, or it's because a lot of times I do eat wrong. I get hungry for something and I just eat it. And I know better.
Well, the physiological bottom line is that stress makes it worse, but you already know that. And the longer it's been there, the harder it is to turn around, but you can turn it around for sure.
And you can at least see some improvement
Yeah.
that would be significant to the quality of your life.
I'm on a pill that nobody's ever heard of, and for years and years it's done wonders for me. And the name of the pill is Glycet, Glyset, and it really, really did wonders for me. And you go to a drugstore here in town, nobody's ever heard about it. I don't only mine where I get it.
Yeah,
But again, the medications either stimulate something or suppress something. And most of those medications are stimulating the production of insulin, or they're stimulating the receptors to some degree. And what happens over time is that if you stimulate your pancreas to produce more insulin, like we had in the earlier slides, it's eventually going to wear out if you push it too hard. The same thing with the pills that push on the receptors in the cells. If you push them, your body doesn't like to be pushed. If I went over there and pushed you a few times in the chair, you wouldn't like it. So after a while, the cell says, I don't like this being pushed. I'm just going to close that off eventually, and pretty soon that won't work anymore.
right. The body's adaptable. It always adapts. And unfortunately, people, if they use and do the same thing for a long enough period of time, the body will adapt that mechanism out of its physiology, and it will not become less effective. So you have to do something different.
But making some of these lifestyle changes might make a difference.
Right.
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Bob.
the body becomes accustomed to that drug that she's taking, let's say.
Oh, yeah.
And it
Certainly.
eventually shuts down. Is there something else that she could, another drug maybe, or not, or?
Well,
diabetes,
Now,
not
we're-
really?
the drugs all have side effects.
Yeah,
The
right.
things we're talking about are nutrients to get that stuff turned back on naturally.
Right.
And lifestyle
That's-
changes to get rid of the cause of why the body's having to work harder.
Right. And that was just what Dr. Berkshire and I were discussing before the talk, is that, you know, the reason that most people have type 2 diabetes is because their cells are unresponsive to insulin. So most of the drugs, and the Glycet, metformin, glyburide, glipizide, all those things, they push the pancreas to make more insulin, which further creates more insensitivity to the cell.
Right.
It's a process where it may very well help the person get their blood sugar numbers under control, but it's going to do so at a cost. And that's something that will eventually, the eventual destination is injectable insulin. I mean,
It's not fixing the cause.
it's not fixing the cause.
Even
of
something
why
as
it's
simple
there.
as starting out with getting rid of white foods for people who have diabetes, that will immediately help bring your blood sugars down.
Yes, ma'am.
What are your thoughts on the Almacid, that is advertised for diabetic publication? Almacid?
Oh, no.
I'm not familiar with that.
Is it a medication or
It's a shake. It's got 27 grams of protein, which like, I'm not diabetic, I'm gonna kick you up on your offer though.
Okay.
How important, how much protein should a diabetic, that's my mom that's speaking, how much protein should a diabetic get every day? And this shake is supposedly good for diabetics to get the metabolism going, keep the blood sugars even.
Well, the best I can say,
See what's
the
in
best
it.
I can say is we'd have to take a look and see what's in it. I mean, there are several shakes, including ones that we have here, that are very low carbohydrate and higher protein. So, I mean, the general idea of what it's following the general idea of what we talked about, but they're putting it into a more simple form of, rather than having to prepare these foods for yourself, you can just simply take a couple of scoops, mix it up, and drink it down, and then you're getting a more balanced ratio of carbohydrate to protein, which is going to be a good thing for most diabetics.
Well, there's 15 carbs in one serving, 12 grams of sugar, so it seems pretty well balanced. You know.
We just have to see what the actual ingredients, what it's made out of, though, you know.
The ingredients make a difference, but here's the bottom line. Earlier I talked about what we believe in is called a response model of healthcare. The bottom line is that how does that work, Flag?
Right.
I use it myself too.
Okay, how does it work? If it works, then it works. And if the ingredients are good, then it could be a good thing.
Right.
So we don't know just because by saying what's in it, how good it is for you.
Right. Right.
But we can test it and find out.
We can, right.
Go ahead,
I have
Rick.
two ingredients I want to find out about. Number one, milk, and also whole grain breads. How much of whole grain breads is that for the two?
What we talked about earlier, where the effect of beans reduce the glycemic effect by 40%, whole grains reduce glycemic effect by 10 to 20%, as compared to a refined grain. So there is an advantage to whole grains, but again, is how well does your body respond to them? It's also the amount. So for instance, I like oats for breakfast once in a while. The difference between oatmeal and steel-cut oats is quite large. Oatmeal turns into carbohydrates and has a very high glycemic index. It turns into sugar very quickly. Whereas the same number of calories in steel-cut oats, the carbohydrates are much more complex, and so it takes a lot longer for them to enter your bloodstream. So it's much better for you. And then if you add some fat to it, which I throw a few nuts in there, a little bit of butter maybe, and add some things to help smooth it out even more, then it'll last for hours. So there's ways to make whole grains work a bit, but you have to balance it out with the whole picture.
And what I always tell my patients is, that, you know, I mean, it's a circumstance where I can discourage people from eating carbohydrates all by themselves. I mean, they should always combine some protein with it.
And fat.
And protein and fat, because naturally in the body, when you put protein and fat with carbohydrates, I compare it to like a 4th of July firecracker, you know, with just carbohydrates, it's a fast burning fuse that'll blow up in your hand. Whereas when you add the carbohydrate fat, the energy burns more slowly, the fuse burns more slowly, and it slows down the rate at which that glucose is entered into your bloodstream and how much of an insulin response there is when that food is eaten. So protein does that.
And milk, how do you feel about that?
Well, milk does have a fair amount of sugar in it. It's got lactose in it. And the other thing that's been found, research shows that there are some people who react to milk. And if their immune systems react to milk, there's a correlation between the immune system attacking the pancreas cells too.
Yes, and that has been hypothesized as a mechanism behind the development of type 1 diabetes, is that the protein for milk is very, very similar, so similar in fact, that to the islets of Langerhans, which produce insulin, and the immune system cannot tell the difference between the milk protein and the islet of Langerhans protein. So it attacks the milk, and it also attacks the pancreas. So, so dairy is, I guess the best we can say is that dairy is a very rich source of carbohydrate. It does have some protein, so it's better than some. It's better than some types of carbohydrates, but also milk also has a very high incidence of people being allergic to it as well.
So regular dairy milk versus coconut, almond, all
So-
the other milks that are out there.
Some of those are somewhat better. I mean, there are people who do okay with dairy as long as it has whole dairy. It's got the fat in it, and their
Right.
digestive systems can handle it. It's good quality.
And
People
how it's
can-
produced.
And how it's produced. So I'm not against dairy and make it sound like dairy causes diabetes. That's not true.
No.
But there is a correlation between somebody who has autoimmune already and they're eating or drinking commercial milk. That there's a problem with.
Right.
See, I've heard
The other
that
thing-
before, the difference between whole milk and low-fat milk, and I guess I never really thought of it that way.
Whole milk is way better.
Yeah.
It just has more calories, so that's what they're talked about. Oh, it's too many calories. Well, you don't need much of it, really.
There's one other point where you were asking about like coconut milk, almond breeze, those kinds of things. Those products also can be sweetened. If you look on the grocery store shelves, there's the plain unsweetened kind, and then there's the sweetened ones. So watching that condition.
evaporated cane juice,
Yeah.
which is another word for sugar essentially. So,
No,
Right
I
back
did
here.
have a question.
I'm surprised to see how much sugar and carbs is in regular milk, but I
Oh,
drink
yeah.
that soy milk now, and it's, 1 carb and 0 sugar in it, and that's what I drink now, the soy milk. The unsweetened 30, your 30, 60, 80, whatever, like, I drink 30.
Okay.
So that's better for me then, isn't it?
Should be.
Yeah.
And then the only other thing that they're talking about right now is, you know, with all the hubbub that there is about GMO and non-GMO and those kinds of issues, that soy is considered to be one of the most unsafe foods. So make sure that you're using an organic soy drink, if you are.
Almond, I think almond soy,
Okay,
Okay, mhm.
that's okay.
should be.
almond soy.
Yeah, and
Are you sure, is it soy milk or is it almond milk?
is it
Almond.
Okay,
almond by, probably by the silk?
Unsweetened, number 30.
probably by the, I was gonna say,
By
it's
the
probably
Silk
by the
company.
Silk Company. They were originally known for producing soy milk, but they have now gone into the almond milk production.
But that's
Uh,
okay to drink that, then.
Should be.
Yeah, that's, I like the almond milk.
I have a question about what does the exam, what does the exam involve? I'm assuming it doesn't, doesn't include all the tests, obviously, but what would the initial exam look like, I guess?
Sure. An initial exam is essentially a neurologic exam. So what we're doing is we're testing the function of your nervous system, and there are some early signs that people are having some difficulty in the department of nerve signaling. So a basic exam looks like we're testing things like your ability to be able to balance on one leg. We're testing the ability of your body to be able to perceive vibration, to be able to perceive light touch, to be able to recognize how many places you're being touched, a test called two-point discrimination testing, and what's called digit span testing. Then we are also doing things like testing reflexes. We are doing also some upper motor neuron testing, which involves looking at eye movements, looking at what's called optical kinetics, which is the ability of the brain to switch gears quickly. We are testing your sense of smell. I just always tell people the nervous system is an input and an output system. And we're testing how well you perceive input and how well your body gives output through muscle strength and muscles and things of that nature. So does that answer your question adequately?
I was wondering if it's
And we're gonna also test blood pressure on both sides. We're gonna
Right.
test oxygen level in the fingers, how oxygen gets into the cells. I also check temperature of hands and feet sometimes. If your feet are cold, we can check the temperature of them.
So is that basically what you do for all new patients, or this is a specific to diabetes type of patient?
What we
I
do.
mean, obviously, you can find out information from.
Sure,
yeah.
sure. All patients who are who are at our clinic,
Okay.
all of them have a neurologic exam because there are different neurologic signs that are specific to different types of conditions that we're looking for.
And there might be other components of it, or there might be a focus on one of those areas more so than another, but.
Right,
Depending on your history.
depending on your history, that's right. Yeah. Are there any other questions, folks? Or, I know we also recognize that there's some people who are not real comfortable asking questions in front of a group. So if folks are done asking more public questions, we will stick around for a little while afterwards, just in case anybody has questions of a more personal nature that they would like to ask.
How you doing?
Do you have these
Good.
seminars, you said earlier?
Once a month.
Once a month?
Every now and then.
Yes.
On this specific?
No, we have, we've done different tests, we've done different,
About a rib that
we've
keeps
done
coming out of
different
place. Gives you a
talks
sharp
on
pain all the time.
thyroid conditions.
Okay.
We've done
Keep
talks
putting it back
on,
in.
we've done ones that are more specific on neuropathy, ones that are more specific
Who knows
to
about it?
things like disc-related